Hello and welcome to this episode of Your Money with me, Mary Holm. Thanks for taking just a few minutes to listen in while Jessie Mulligan and I talk through some useful ideas about how to make your money work better for you. Just remember though, this is guidance. Final decisions are up to you. Over to Jessie.
Let's go to Mary Holm now, our personal finance expert who's talking Kiwisaver today. Hey Mary.
Hello Jessie.
Shall we start with this warning I've been teasing?
Yeah, we better, yes.
Yeah, we do it every year.
We do.
But I would have totally forgotten about it if my Kiwisaver provider hadn't given me a little nudge. And good on them for doing it as well.
Yes, indeed. This is about getting the maximum tax credit every year. And we have left it a bit late this time because people have got to, if you haven't got enough money yet into your Kiwisaver account, but in the year ending June the 30th, to get the maximum tax credit, well, you've got to do it in the next day or two. And the sooner the better. Today would be better, really. I mean, to do it at the last minute, you'd have to give your money directly to the provider, your Kiwisaver provider.
I did that yesterday.
Did you?
I always leave things to the last minute,
Oh, do
Mary.
you? Yeah, well, you a couple of days to spare, Jessie. Very well done. but it'd be a good idea to try and do it today or certainly tomorrow because the 30th is not a business day and I don't know quite how that would work. I mean, you might be able to transfer it on Saturday, but not ideal. You want to get that money in there. So basically, you want to have deposited 1,043 at least of your contributions, not your employer contributions, into Kiwisaver by June the 30th. And if you haven't got an employer, of course, if you're self-employed or whatever, you're going to be doing it yourself. And by the way, I do suggest if you're not an employee, it's quite a good idea to just do it on a monthly basis rather than every year. Although,
so you don't get the panic carrying me and Mary every June. It's not good for your blood pressure.
That's part of it. But it also means that if you're transferring $80 a month, I think it's 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because who's got $1,000 lying around in June that they can just throw away?
Yes, that's right.
Well, you're not throwing it away, but it's the future. It's almost throwing it away.
It does seem like a lot to suddenly come out of your account in one go. The other thing is if you're putting it in on a regular basis through the year, you're not it could be that the share markets have risen and the bond markets, etc., have risen recently, and so you're buying more expensive units in the fund at the end of the year. If you put it in on a monthly basis, then you'll get some good months and some bad months in terms of the ups and downs of the market, and that tends to be a better strategy altogether.
I'm worried we might have glossed over exactly how this works, so would you mind just spelling it out for us? Yeah,
so if you want to have got at least $1,043 into your Kiwisaver account from July the 1st last year through to June the 30th of this year. If you're an employee and you're putting in putting in 3% of your pay and you earn more than $35,000 a year, then 3% of your pay will have got you over that maximum amount anyway. If you earn less than $35,000 though, it's a really good idea to find out how much you have put in. Your provider should be able to tell you. If you can't calculate it yourself, some people can calculate it from their their pay slips, which will tell them how much is going in each payday. So that's for employees earning under $35,000 or for non-employed people who want to. And if you can get the 1,043 in there, then the government puts in 50 cents for every dollar you put in. So they'll put in $5.21, which is roughly half of 1,043. In the next month or so as the tax credit. If you've put in less, if you've only put in $50 in the course of the year, the government will put in $25. So just get in as much as you can. And if you're on a contributions holiday, and a lot of people are, and we'll get on to that more in a minute, you can still put in one-off contributions whenever you want to. There's nothing to stop you from putting money directly into the provider and getting that tax credit. And it's a real pity if people don't. Last year, 520,000, so more than 500,000 people didn't contribute into Kiwisaver. And actually, I'm not sure, to be honest, whether they didn't contribute at all or whether they didn't contribute the maximum, but I think it's that they didn't contribute at all. And so they missed out on the tax credit. And that's free government money, and that's one of the two things that makes Kiwisaver so good. The other is the employer contributions, but it's a real pity for people to miss out.
The government is basically offering you $500 risk-free, no questions asked every
That's
year.
right.
But
And
to claim it, you've got to put $1,000 in.
Yes.
So don't miss out this year.
That's exactly right. You keep it forever. The only excuse I will put up with for not putting money into Kiwisaver is if you're paying off high interest debt, which is actually, credit card debt or other high interest debt. It is such a negative in your financial situation that if instead of contributing to Kiwisaver you were putting that money into getting rid of credit card debt, then I'd say good on you.
Okay.
But you're not allowed to say, well, I might do that and therefore I won't do Kiwisaver, and you don't do either. Yeah.
It's basically a guaranteed 50% return, isn't it?
Yes, in the first year it is. Yes, in that year that money. Yeah.
Okay. You've got Kiwisaver on your mind this week.
Look, I have, and last time I'd just come fresh from a conference where there was a proposal to add a rainy day fund to the Kiwisaver. So we won't go into all of that again. That's all on the podcast if people missed it last time. But that conference also had a panel of Kiwisaver people talking about ways Kiwisaver could be improved. I was on that panel, and one of my suggestions we talked about last time as well, which was giving people the option of starting to contribute to Kiwisaver with just 1%, and then that automatically increasing, like to 1.25% after 6 months, 1.5% after a year, and so on. So you sign up for a very small amount. That's around the world they've found that programs where people sign up for gradually increasing their savings work much better. People are often unwilling to suddenly start saving a lot of money, but if they just sign up for a very small amount and gradually increase it, they just adapt as they go through, and it works really well. It's good psychology. And connected to that, I was saying last time that I would like to see beneficiaries in Kiwisaver. I would love to see that, and I think if they were to start at 1% of their benefit going in, and if the government were to boost everybody's benefits by 1% when they make this change, so that beneficiaries' take-home pay doesn't drop at all, but it gets them into Kiwisaver. And then they could perhaps also be on this scheme where they go up to 1.25% after 6 months and 2%, because that'd be very gradual increases for them, because I just don't like the idea that beneficiaries are missing out on having a longer-term financial plan. I know some people will be out there and saying, Mary, stop being, unrealistic here, that beneficiaries are struggling to put shoes on the kids and they haven't got a moment's thought for what's happening 30, 40, 50 years hence. But I don't believe that. I mean, I think everybody likes to be doing long-term as well as short-term plans. So I would love to see that happen. Okay, that would cost the government money, but at this conference, at this panel, there were various people talking about a whole lot of other ways Kiwisaver could be improved that would cost the government money, like giving tax incentives to people to perhaps stop taxes from being charged on the returns we make in Kiwisaver. Currently, with the returns we make, which is the interest and the dividends we receive and other returns that come into our Kiwisaver funds, we are taxed on.
Right.
We don't have to fill out tax returns or anything. It happens automatically. The providers take care of it, but we are taxed on it. And if that was removed or reduced, the tax rates on those returns, our Kiwisaver money would grow a lot faster. So that'd be nice. But it is just actually transfer of money from all the taxpayers to all of those who are in Kiwisaver, and some would argue that's not fair. And I'm saying, well, okay, if the government is being approached to do something like that, I would prefer to see them put it into getting the beneficiaries into Kiwisaver.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. Did you get any support on that one, Mary?
It was one of those panel discussions where everybody just says their little piece and then there's no real conversation on it. But I hope listeners out there
people
might
nod
pick
approvingly. That's the best you can hope for in a panel discussion.
I'm not even sure if they nodded about that,
Okay.
but because some of them were
They
probably
furrow their brows.
Yeah, they were probably more interested in the sort of. Some of them were Kiwisaver providers and so on, and they might have been more interested in the high end people, perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know. That's probably not fair, but there were some other suggestions made that I thought might be interesting to discuss today.
Please.
One was compulsion. So that's been around ever since Kiwisaver started, and in fact, I think before it started, the government was thinking about making it compulsory, so that it'd be compulsory only for employees, but every employee would be put into Kiwisaver and couldn't pull out of it again. Whether they would continue with contributions holidays, so that currently people who are in Kiwisaver can take a holiday from 3 months to 5 years. Whether that would be allowed, I don't know. I suppose not, because otherwise it's not really compulsory. I mean, because with the contributions holidays, you can take them for 5 years and renew it for another 5 years.
Takes a bit of effort, though, doesn't it?
Not a lot. The form is there online, and you don't have to prove hardship or anything for that.
No, I just did it yesterday, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's something, you've actually got to actively go and do it at least.
Yes, you do.
You know what I
You
mean?
do.
It's a bit harder to get out of.
Yes.
Maybe that would be enough.
But it is only 5 years, so anyway, whether or not they do compulsion, and one of the people on the panel pointed out if they did, they wouldn't have to do the tax credits anymore, because they're there to kind of entice people to put money into Kiwisaver. And if it's compulsory, although they might want to have tax credits for non-employees. I mean, there are also a lot of us who are self-employed or not employed, perhaps at home looking after little children or whatever. There's a whole lot of people out there who, for one reason or another, are not employees. But I don't like compulsion, and I have to say it's more of a kind of gut reaction thing. I don't like the idea of the government making people put money somewhere. I think it's...
But we're forced to pay tax, Mary, so that we can have hospitals. What's the difference?
Why
not be forced to save for Kiwisaver so you've got something to retire on at 65?
Yeah, and it does happen in some other countries, and you're quite right. It's just a kind of, I suppose, it's perhaps a libertarian bent I've got or something. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, that might or might not happen.
Paying for beneficiaries Kiwisaver isn't very libertarian, Mary.
Isn't it?
You've got to sort your politics out.
I'm a bit of a mixture, Jesse.
You know how it works these days. You choose hard right or hard left, and you hate everyone in the other camp. You don't listen to them. You haven't got it right.
I'm wallowing around in the middle there somewhere. Yeah.
You're not going to fit in.
And so perhaps we better move on to default fund investments, which was a hot topic amongst the panel. There were, I think, 3 out of 5 people were talking quite a lot about that. Currently, when you go into Kiwisaver, when you get a new job, you're automatically put into it, and if you don't pull out between 2 and 8 weeks later, you stay in, and you're put into a default fund, because the government realised if they said to people you've got to choose a fund, people wouldn't know what to choose, and so they said we're going to put them in a default fund. And the idea is, after a while, they'll learn a bit more about it and they'll move to the best fund for them. And the default funds, they're not the most conservative, they're the second most conservative. There's 5 different levels of risk in Kiwisaver funds, and they're the second to lowest risk. The default funds come in there. Now, ever since Kiwisaver started, once again, there's been debates about whether that default fund should be so conservative. And the argument against putting people into a conservative fund is that the young ones should really be in a much higher risk fund, because they have got many years before they're going to retire, so it doesn't really matter if the markets are going up and down a lot, because in the long run they'll grow a lot more, so they'll end up with a lot more money. The idea then is to put the young ones in the high risk funds and gradually reduce the risk as people get older. That's been an often suggested alternative, and it's one that I tend to support. But
it's so obvious.
And
it's been the big problem for years and years and years. Everyone's in the wrong fund.
Yes. There are a couple of worries about it, though. One, of course, is that the young ones, quite often the ones that are wanting to buy a first home,
Oh, yeah.
take their Kiwisaver money out, and if they're in a high risk fund, and it happens to go down, the markets happen to plunge down right when you want to take your money out to buy a first home, you might find that your 50,000 is suddenly 40,000, and that's not a good look. So I think because of that, we would have to say to everybody going into a default fund, have you bought a first home? Is that a possibility for you? And if it is a possibility, that you haven't yet bought one and it's a possibility, that then you would go into a more conservative fund. The other worries are, though, as well, that young people, maybe they've already got a first home or they're not interested in getting one, they're in a high-risk fund. When that gets volatile, and it's not if, it's when, they might panic. Yeah. They might see their balance plunging down and move at that point to a very conservative fund, and it's awful when people do that because they're moving out right when the account balance is very low, and sort of making those losses real. If they stay in there, the losses will go away, the balance will come back up again. So there'd have to be quite a lot of education that went with it to say to people, hey, you're in a high-risk fund, here's why. In the long run, you're sure to end up with a lot more money, but you've got to stick with it when the markets go down. And at the other end of the spectrum, if you're putting people who are, say, 60 in a conservative fund because they're getting near 65 when they're likely to spend the money, that's not always a good thing either. I mean, a lot of these days people get to 65 and expect to live another 20 years or even 30 years or more if they're healthy. And so you don't want all their savings to be in conservative investments. I mean, all of this can be got round by the fact that we're still talking default funds. People are always free to move their money to a better place. And so the ideal would be for people young and old to understand more.
Never going to happen.
Oh, come on. You and I are trying here now today, Jessie, to get people to understand more, and so they can choose the right fund for them. And there's a sort of website, Fund Finder.
And we often have emails from people saying, Mary, which fund should I be in? And Mary has done lots and lots of advice on this, and you can go and search her archive on the RNZ site or on maryholm.com. It's a question she has answered many, many times before.
And the trouble is the evidence is out there that still a lot of people don't fully know. Another one that I would change I would like to see is the end of what they call total remuneration, which is a cumbersome name, but I think we've talked about it a bit before. But it's some employers, and it tends to be big employers that usually do this, but not always, who effectively take employer contributions out of the employee's pay. So you're paying your employee contribution of 3% of your pay, and then the employer's taking the other 3% out of your pay.
Very against the spirit of Kiwisaver.
Look, I think it is. And the employer's argument is that they want to treat people in Kiwisaver the same as people out of Kiwisaver. They've got other employees who, for various reasons, perhaps saying they can't afford Kiwisaver, are not in there. And for those people they're saying, well, we should treat them all the same. So if we're going to put 3% into employees' Kiwisaver, that's not fair. So if we take it out of their pay, then we're treating everybody equally. But I mean, especially if we brought in my proposal of having a 1% option, a 1% where it grows from 1 to 1.25, etc., then it gets pretty hard for employees to argue that they can't afford Kiwisaver. I mean, currently there are people who say I can't afford 3%. And that is sort of understandable, although I think a lot of them could be challenged on it. Some can, some can't. But I would like to see it ended. It was ended, the Labour government allowed it and then ended it, and then the National government allowed it, and I'd like to see the Labour government end it again. But we'll see how that one goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other ideas?
A couple more contributions holidays, which I talked about where you can take them from 3 months to 5 years. But I was looking it up this morning. You can take it from anything from 3 months to 5 years, but 84% of the people on contributions holidays have taken 5 years. So just about everybody is getting in and taking the whole 5 years. And that's rather a pity because people over 5 years, their financial situation changes. If they're struggling for a while to put money in, 5 years later they're not going to be struggling. Often 1 year later they're not going to be struggling. But once they've stopped contributing, they just, I think, inertia steps in and they don't start again. So I would like it to see the maximum be 1 year, renewable after that 1 year. But as you say, then there's a bit of a hassle. You've got to go and renew it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that would work. I would also like to see contributions holidays name changed. The Retirement Commission, which is now the Commission for Financial Capability, suggests it should be changed from contributions holidays to savings suspension. I don't know that I like that much either, but the point is they think that holiday sounds like kind of nice. I'm going on a holiday and I think it's got a nice sort of positive connotations. Yeah. And so calling it something else perhaps could help. And while we're talking about names, the tax credit is not a tax credit. It was... I think when they were initially planning Kiwisaver, they were going to do a tax credit, and then they changed it so it's actually nothing to do with tax. It's just money that the government puts into your Kiwisaver account.
Okay, so you don't need to be earning money
to get it.
No.
And quite a few people say, well, I'm not eligible for tax credit anyway, so I might as well not be in Kiwisaver because I'm not paying tax at the moment. I'm home looking after little kids or whatever. And so I think that could easily be changed to bonus.
Yeah.
Just call it a bonus.
Yeah.
And that would be fine.
It's a nice word like holiday, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Now, have we got time for a couple more or not?
We do, and I've got lots of questions about this $500 bonus, which I want to throw at you too. So.
Oh, yes. Well, I'll just briefly say that I think that it would be good if Kiwisaver providers gave more help to people as they get to retirement level. At 65, I get lots of letters from people. There's difficulties in knowing what to do about your money as you hit retirement. I think there could be a lot more help given with that. But that's the main... Did you have some questions? There was one that was sent in a bit earlier. Have you got that one there where the person was saying, we've just joined Kiwisaver about 3 months ago and we don't know how to keep track of our contributions? And there was one that was forwarded to me this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. If you go to kiwisaver.gov.nz, which is run by the government, there's a lot of really good accessible information in there, including how to keep track of your contributions. Because the thing is, if you're an employee, your provider will tell you what your balance is, but it'll be lower than it actually should be because the contributions take about 3 months from the time they come out of your pay to the time they get into your account. There's some good reasons for that. They've got to go in, the employer's got to pay them into IRD, and the IRD's got to do some checks, and on it goes, and they actually explain on that website why it takes 3 months. But in the meantime, on that website, you can register for, I think it's called My Kiwisaver, and see through that you can see where your contributions are in the meantime. So if you go to that website, you can ask the provider what your balance is there, and then on that kiwisaver.gov.nz website, find out what other ones are on their way through.
Okay. So lots of people listening about this free $500.
Yes.
Kerry just wants to clarify this payment that's standard, isn't it, every year, as long as you've put in your $1,000. So you might have thought the way we were talking about it like it's a one-off sort of 2018 thing. Yeah.
No, every year, yes.
Okay. Hi, Jesse and Mary. I have a question. We have a Kiwisaver account for each of our kids that we contribute to. They are under 18. Do they get the bonus too?
No, they don't. No, I should have mentioned that. But when they turn 18, quite often they're in university or in a part-time job, something like that. Give them some help to get them if you can. It's a really good idea to give them some help to get that 1043 in there.
What about the other end? Hi, Jesse. Do you get the tax credit after retirement?
You don't get it after 65 unless you've been in Kiwisaver for less than 5 years. So if you joined at 60 when you were 64, you would get it till 69. Everyone gets at least 5 years of it. But apart from those people who join after 60, it stops at when you turn 65.
Am I right, says someone, that you only receive the $500 tax credit for the first 5 years you're in the Kiwisaver scheme?
No. I don't know where. That's probably, from what I just said, that if you join aged over 60, you get it for 5 years, so that, even if you join at 64, you get it to 69. But everybody else gets it all the way through until they turn 65.
Good bonus, actually, if you know any 64-year-olds or 63-year-olds that aren't members of Kiwisaver. It's really good free money.
Yeah.
Can you please advise if it is the 30 June, the deadline for Kiwisaver? My bank sent me an email saying it was the 27th of June.
Look, illegally it's the 30th, but possibly the bank is saying we need it in by the 27th so that we can process it before June the 30th. But, and I wouldn't push them on that. I get it in by the 27th if you can. Okay. You might as well, yeah.
That'll be next year now, of course. Paul says, could you please ask Mary, if I do a deposit to my Kiwisaver online through IRD now, will I get the government contribution?
Through IRD now. Yes, I do. I am familiar with that, but I don't know anyone much who ever does it.
So presumably you can make voluntary contributions to the IRD and it makes its way to you.
Yes,
provider.
But I don't see why you wouldn't just go straight to your provider. I mean, I've never heard of anyone using that facility through IRD. They would probably make sure you got it, because IRD, I think, is quite diligent about not messing people up with these things.
Yeah.
But I would just get it into your provider.
My Kiwisaver provider, because as I mentioned, I did it just yesterday, and they've got, if you look on the site for make a lump sum contribution or something along those lines, and then they give you the bank account details. So you just transfer it directly via your internet banking, and then you also fill out a form to let them know that you've sent it to them.
Look, so maybe the IRD now is a better way to do it. I don't know, to be honest with you. There's one other point regards all of this. If you turn 18 or 65, if you've turned that within since last July the 1st, then your tax credit's proportionate to how much of the year you were over 18 or under 65.
Or if you just joined Kiwisaver partway through
That's
the year,
right.
right?
Yeah, yes.
And someone says, you still haven't had anyone on your show ever who's argued against Kiwisaver. Nothing can be that good. Do you know anyone who's against Kiwisaver?
I do. I won't name him because he might not want to come on, but I'll ask if he wants to come on. Maybe he should.
Is he against the scheme, or is he against people joining up to the scheme? Because once we've got the scheme, do you know what I mean?
He's against more the scheme. He thinks it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
He thinks New Zealand we're not really saving that much
Does his
more
name
than
start
we
with
were
B?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a note and see if he would like to come on perhaps with me sometime or instead of me. Or,
CNN does that sometimes. It's like a crossfire situation, or Fox News. And we get both on microphone and you just you spit invective at each other about how stupid each of you is.
The trouble is I quite like him.
Yeah. No, that doesn't. Again, it's not going to work, Mary. You've misread the current political climate.
I have, yeah.
Mary Holm, thanks. Nice to have you in.
Pleasure, Jessie. Bye-bye.
Mary is in every couple of weeks, and if you want to listen back to any of her previous chats with me, you can find her interviews on our podcasts page.